Have you ever met someone who felt different from everyone else? Someone whose presence felt calm, genuine, almost rare in a world full of noise and pretending. Someone who didn't try to impress you, didn't play games with your emotions, and yet somehow their presence felt deeply meaningful. But here is the strange part. Many people fail to recognize these rare individuals until it is too late. They let them walk away, thinking they will find someone better, someone more exciting, someone more perfect. But according to the ideas of Carl Jung, the truly meaningful connections in life are not always the loudest or the most dramatic. In fact, the most valuable people often appear quietly, almost unnoticed, because their value is not based on appearance, status, or attention. Their value lies in something far deeper: their character, their sincerity, and the emotional safety they create around you. Jung believed that modern society often trains people to chase excitement instead of depth. People chase attention, beauty, popularity, and status, believing these things will lead them to happiness. But the truth is much more subtle and much more powerful. The people who truly bring peace into your life are rarely the ones who try the hardest to be noticed. They are the ones who remain genuine when the world pressures them to become something else. And if you ever meet someone like this, Jung believed losing them could be one of the greatest mistakes a person makes in life. Because rare people do not appear often. Most people you meet will mirror the world around them. They adapt to trends, they hide their true thoughts, they adjust their personality depending on who they are with. But a truly lovely person, someone rare, does something very different. They remain consistent. Their kindness is not a performance. Their honesty is not selective. Their care for you is not based on convenience. And this is why many people fail to recognize their value at first. Because we have become so used to manipulation, ego, and emotional games that genuine kindness feels almost unfamiliar. Jung once suggested that people often overlook what is truly valuable because they are distracted by illusions. They are attracted to excitement, drama, and emotional intensity. But the people who bring stability, calmness, and emotional safety often go unnoticed. Think about it for a moment. How many times have people chased someone who treated them poorly, while ignoring someone who genuinely cared for them? How many relationships end because someone thought they could find something better, only to realize later that they had already met the rare person they were searching for? Jung believed that this happens because most people are disconnected from their deeper psychological awareness. They are guided by impulse, by ego, and by the unconscious desire to prove something to the world. But a person who has begun to develop self-awareness starts to see people differently. They stop chasing appearances. They start valuing emotional depth. They start recognizing the quiet strength of someone who is honest, loyal, and emotionally stable. And this is where something fascinating begins to happen. Because once you become aware of this difference, you start to notice that truly lovely people share certain subtle traits that separate them from everyone else. These traits are not always obvious at first glance. In fact, they are often hidden beneath a calm and simple personality. But once you recognize them, you begin to understand why Jung believed such people are extremely rare. The first trait of a truly lovely person is emotional sincerity. In a world where many people wear social masks, this person does not feel the need to constantly pretend. Their emotions are real. When they care about you, you feel it in their actions, not just in their words. When they listen to you, they are not waiting for their turn to speak. They are genuinely present. Jung described this as psychological authenticity. It is the ability to remain connected to your true self, rather than performing for the expectations of society. And people who possess this quality are rare, because authenticity requires courage. It means being willing to be misunderstood. It means refusing to manipulate others just to gain approval. A truly lovely person does not try to control how others see them. They simply choose honesty over strategy. But here's where things become even more interesting. Because Jung believed that authentic people often attract two very different reactions from others. Some people feel deeply drawn to them because their presence feels safe and genuine. But others feel uncomfortable around them because authenticity exposes the masks people hide behind. And this creates a strange psychological dynamic. The rarest people in the world are often the ones most misunderstood. Their calmness may be mistaken for weakness. Their kindness may be taken for granted. Their patience may be seen as something that will always be there. And because of this, many people fail to appreciate them until they finally disappear from their lives. But once they are gone, something unexpected happens. The emotional chaos that once felt exciting suddenly feels exhausting. The superficial connections that once seemed entertaining begin to feel empty. And slowly, people start to realize that what they lost was not ordinary at all. They lost someone rare. Someone whose presence created peace rather than confusion. Someone whose loyalty was not based on conditions. Someone whose kindness did not depend on what they could gain in return. And by the time this realization arrives, the opportunity to keep that person close may already be gone. Because truly lovely people have one important quality that many people overlook. They are kind, but they are not blind. They are patient, but they are not willing to be endlessly taken for granted. They understand the value of genuine connection, but they also understand their own worth. And when they realize their presence is no longer appreciated, they slowly begin to step away. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with quiet dignity. And this is the moment when many people begin to feel the true weight of their absence. And this is where the psychology becomes even more fascinating. Because when a truly lovely person begins to step away, the people around them often do not notice immediately. At first, everything seems normal. Life continues, conversations continue, daily routines continue. But slowly a strange feeling begins to appear. Something feels different. Something feels missing. Yet it is difficult to explain what exactly changed. According to the ideas of Carl Jung, this feeling appears because human beings are deeply affected by the psychological energy of the people around them. Some individuals bring tension, competition, and emotional chaos into every space they enter. But rare individuals bring something entirely different. They bring calmness, emotional balance, and a quiet sense of safety that most people never consciously recognize while it is present. When such a person slowly removes themselves from your life, you begin to notice the emotional difference even if you cannot immediately explain it. Conversations that once felt meaningful suddenly feel shallow. Relationships that once seemed exciting suddenly feel exhausting. The environment that once felt normal begins to feel strangely empty. Jung believed this happens because truly authentic people create psychological harmony around them. Their presence stabilizes the emotional environment without them even trying. They listen without judgment. They support without manipulation. And they care without constantly demanding attention in return. But the tragedy is that most people only understand the value of this harmony once it disappears. This is because modern relationships are often built on excitement rather than emotional depth. Many people confuse emotional drama with passion. They believe intensity means connection. They believe jealousy means love. They believe unpredictability means attraction. But Jung warned that these emotional patterns often come from unresolved psychological conflicts rather than genuine love. Real connection feels different. It feels calm. It feels safe. It feels stable. And ironically, this stability can sometimes appear boring to people who are addicted to emotional chaos. This is one of the reasons why truly lovely people are often overlooked at first. They do not create drama. They do not compete for attention. They do not manipulate emotions to keep someone attached. Instead, they offer something much deeper: emotional sincerity. They offer loyalty without games. They offer honesty without hidden motives. They offer support without constantly reminding you of it. And because of this, their value is quiet rather than loud. Jung believed that recognizing such people requires a certain level of psychological maturity. When someone is still guided mainly by ego, they are attracted to people who stimulate their pride, their desires, and their need for validation. But when someone begins to develop self-awareness, their priorities slowly change. They begin to value peace over excitement. They begin to value honesty over charm. They begin to value emotional stability over temporary attraction. And this shift in awareness changes how they see the people in their lives. Suddenly, they realize that the most important individuals were never the loudest ones. They were the quiet ones who remained loyal even when things became difficult. They were the ones who stayed genuine even when pretending would have been easier. They were the ones who cared about the relationship itself rather than what they could gain from it. Jung connected this realization to what he called the process of individuation. This is the psychological journey where a person slowly becomes aware of their deeper self. During this process, people begin to recognize their own emotional patterns, their unconscious fears, and the illusions they once believed about relationships. And one of the most powerful realizations that appears during this journey is the understanding that truly meaningful connections are rare. Very rare, because genuine people are rare. Most individuals operate behind social masks. They say what is expected. They behave according to social roles, and they adapt their personality depending on what benefits them in the moment. But authentic individuals refuse to live this way. They choose honesty even when it is uncomfortable. They choose loyalty even when it is not rewarded. They choose sincerity even when others around them are playing psychological games. And this authenticity creates something very powerful. Trust. Not the fragile trust built on promises and words, but the deeper trust that grows from consistent behavior over time. When you meet someone like this, their presence becomes emotionally grounding. You begin to feel that you can be yourself without constantly defending or proving your worth. Conversations feel natural rather than strategic. Silence feels comfortable rather than awkward. And slowly you realize that their presence brings a sense of peace that is extremely difficult to find in the modern world. But here is the painful truth Jung often hinted at. Many people do not realize the value of this peace until they lose it. Because humans have a strange psychological tendency to believe that what they currently have will always remain available. They assume loyalty will always wait. They assume kindness will always return. They assume patience will always endure. But truly lovely people are not endlessly tolerant. Their kindness does not mean they accept being taken for granted forever. Their patience does not mean they will remain where they are not appreciated. And their loyalty does not mean they will stay where sincerity is not returned. When they finally recognize that their presence is no longer valued, they begin to quietly withdraw their emotional energy. They stop forcing conversations. They stop chasing connection. They stop trying to prove their sincerity. And instead, they begin focusing on environments where their authenticity is respected rather than ignored. This moment is often invisible to others at first. But it is psychologically significant. Because when a genuinely kind person decides to step back, they rarely return to the same emotional position again. They may still wish others well. They may still remain respectful. But the deep emotional openness they once offered becomes protected. And that is when many people suddenly feel the absence they never noticed before. They begin to remember the quiet loyalty they once had in their lives. They begin to miss the calm presence that once balanced their emotional world. They begin to realize that what they thought was ordinary was actually something extremely rare. And by the time this realization fully arrives, the distance between them and that person may already be too great to repair. And this realization leads to one of the most powerful psychological truths about human relationships. The rarest people in life are not the most impressive, the most charming, or the most admired by the world. The rarest people are the ones who remain genuine when pretending would be easier. According to the psychological ideas of Carl Jung, authenticity is one of the most difficult qualities for a human being to maintain. Society constantly pressures individuals to hide their true nature behind social expectations, roles, and carefully constructed identities. From a young age, people learn how to behave in ways that gain approval. They learn what to say, how to appear confident, how to attract attention, and how to present a version of themselves that others will admire. But Jung believed that this process slowly separates people from their authentic selves. The more someone depends on external validation, the more they begin to live through what Jung described as the persona. The persona is the social mask people wear to navigate the world. It is useful in many situations, but when someone becomes completely identified with this mask, their true self begins to disappear behind it. And this is why truly authentic individuals are so rare. Because authenticity requires the courage to exist beyond the need for constant approval. A genuinely lovely person does not build their identity around impressing others. They build it around inner integrity. Their kindness does not come from a desire to appear good. It comes from their character. Their loyalty does not come from fear of losing someone. It comes from their natural sense of responsibility toward meaningful relationships. Their honesty does not come from a strategy. It comes from their refusal to manipulate reality. When you meet someone like this, their presence feels different because it is not built on psychological performance. You feel that their words and their actions are aligned. What they say is what they mean. What they promise is what they attempt to honor. And what they feel is expressed without unnecessary games or emotional manipulation. Jung believed that when two authentic individuals meet, something extraordinary can happen. Their connection is not based on superficial attraction or temporary excitement. It is based on recognition. They recognize each other's sincerity. They recognize each other's depth. They recognize that both of them are attempting to live honestly in a world that often rewards the opposite. But such connections require awareness to survive. Because if one person does not recognize the rarity of what they have, the relationship slowly becomes unbalanced. One person continues offering sincerity, while the other begins to treat that sincerity as something ordinary. This imbalance does not always create immediate conflict. Sometimes it appears quietly. One person starts investing less emotional effort. Conversations become shorter. Appreciation becomes less frequent. Attention begins to shift toward distractions that feel more exciting, but less meaningful. Meanwhile, the authentic person notices this change very clearly. Not because they are suspicious or insecure, but because sincerity naturally recognizes when it is no longer being mirrored. And this is where the most important psychological decision begins to form. A truly lovely person must eventually choose between two paths. They can continue offering their sincerity in a place where it is no longer valued, or they can quietly step away and protect the authenticity that defines who they are. Most genuine individuals choose the second path, not because they lack care, but because they respect the meaning of sincerity itself. They understand that authenticity cannot survive in environments where it is repeatedly ignored. So they leave, often silently, often without traumatic confrontation, and often without trying to make the other person feel guilty. They simply recognize that their presence belongs somewhere it will be understood rather than overlooked. And only after this departure does the deeper realization begin to grow in the mind of the person left behind. At first the absence feels subtle. Then it becomes noticeable. Then it becomes emotionally heavy. They begin remembering small moments they once ignored. The calm conversations, the quiet support, the loyalty that never demanded attention, the emotional safety that once surrounded them without effort. And slowly they start understanding something that Jung believed many people learn too late. The most valuable people in life rarely announce their value. They simply live it. They show it through consistency, through patience, through sincerity that does not change depending on convenience. But because this value is quiet rather than dramatic, it is often underestimated until it disappears. Jung believed that psychological growth begins when a person learns to recognize what is genuinely meaningful before it is lost. This awareness changes how someone sees relationships. Instead of chasing excitement, they begin protecting sincerity. Instead of being impressed by appearance, they begin valuing character. Instead of pursuing endless options, they begin appreciating the rare individuals who bring peace into their lives. And once a person reaches this level of understanding, their entire perspective on connection transforms. They no longer measure relationships by intensity or temporary passion. They measure them by authenticity, loyalty, and emotional depth. Because they finally understand something that Jung believed was one of the most important truths about human connection. Truly lovely people are rare. Extremely rare. And when you meet one, when you find someone whose sincerity feels genuine, whose loyalty feels natural, and whose presence brings peace rather than confusion, losing them may not just be the loss of a relationship. It may be the loss of something far more difficult to find again.